Hey guys, what's up? It's your boy T for 365 Horror, and this is a horror movie discovery channel. I am just here to put as many horror movies on your watch list as possible. And today we're going to be looking at 7 of the scariest movies that I've seen lately. So let's get into it right now. Now we are going to get into the video, but before we do, I've got to remind you guys to please like and subscribe if you like this content. Also, this video is best watched with the movie tracker. I like to use Letterboxd. It's just the easiest way to keep track of the movies that you've seen and want to see. I also want to touch on the availability of these titles, as I have personally went to each one of the services and verified that these movies are available. And if you are having trouble seeing them, the most likely reason is you are region locked. But a lot of these movies have been out for a bit, so in most cases, even for my Canadian friends, that shouldn't be a problem. And lastly, these are just my opinion and suggestions. As always, I've added chapters and timestamps in the description, so if you don't like any of the movies I've picked, you are always free to skip to the next one. And also remember that this is just one series of manys. I have these movie list series, I have my review series, and I've got the new movie series that we go over every single week. So again, if you always want to keep up on like the latest horror streaming stuff, make sure you subscribe down below. But with that, let's get right into it. So the first thing I wanted to cover in today's video is exactly what is this, right? Like, this is the reason why I'm kind of going with the scariest movies that I've seen lately, is because I just find that that's the easiest way to kind of keep you guys up on different movies, right? Like, every time I do like an all-time series or anything like that, it's gonna kind of be the same. Like, sure, some movies kind of get swapped in and moved out as time progresses, but I just feel like with the lately, it's kind of like it's always kind of a more fresher set. So I'm going to kind of focus more on like things I've watched lately. Now, of course, at the end of the year, I will do like my top lists and you know what I mean? Maybe some of the bigger holidays, like my top 10, Halloween list. But again, year to year, that doesn't change a whole lot. Whereas the movies I've watched lately is always changing. So that's kind of why I've decided to go that direction with some of these sub-series. So the first thing I kind of want to go over is what is scary, what is creepy to me. Again, just like everything in horror, it's going to be very subjective. So what I like to do is when I do score up my movies, I have a really big spreadsheet that I've been working on since I started this channel, because I really wanted to group the movies and remember, right? Because my memory is one of my biggest enemies. So on my spreadsheet, I also break down the movies into sub-scores. The sub-scores are scary, which is kind of how intense a movie is, creepy, which is how much it sticks with me, because scary and creepy to me are two different emotions. Like, I can be, you know, on the edge of my seat and jump scares, but then turn off the movie and go right into my basement, right? Like, creepy for me is like the feeling if you're in the basement and I was to shut the lights off and you can't see your hand in front of your face, are you gonna feel a little creeped out after watching the movie? Like, I have a very active imagination, so for me it's easy, right? Like, for me, even to this day, I'm an old dude, but like when I go up the stairs, like I kind of run up the stairs a little bit if the movie was like actually got to me. Yes, over time, like it's harder and harder to creep me out, unfortunately. I wish I could still be creeped out like super easy. But anyways, and then I have my gore score, which is how gory the movie is, and then I've got disturbing, and then weird, and final. So for me, I watch horror for very specific things: to be scared, to be shocked, to be disgusted. So I don't always need the story to be amazing. It is a plus and it plays into the overall score. And you always hear me kind of talk about story when I review movies, but I just don't like, if the movie has kind of a crappy story, but I was still scared and creeped out, then I look at that as a successful horror in my eyes. It might not get the best score, but it was successful nonetheless. So next I want to really talk about what I find scary, right? Because you're going to be like, well, none of these are scary, especially if you don't find the things that are scary to you that are scary to me. So what generally scares me, and you will find a lot of it on this list, is supernatural horror, right? I've got a very active imagination, the type where I always hear sounds, like, did I hear something? You know what I mean? There are certain movies that, again, I used to have to sleep with the lights on. I was very afraid of the dark as a kid. So anything that kind of plays on my imagination. Now, like I said, a movie like The Strangers, That's just people busting in the house, man. I've heard of like people getting robbed all the time, right? But ghosts, like, you can't protect yourself. There's nowhere to hide. There's nowhere to, so that kind of supernatural thing is what really creeps me out the most and makes me feel like it could be in my basement right now. Like, even though nothing came through the door, like something weird could be happening. That's just how ghosts are. So for me, kind of ghosts and supernatural entities are what I find scary. And to go along with that point, I've said this before, and if you've watched my videos for a long time, I've said this before in other videos, but I find that a very big component to be scared or creeped out is the mood you set versus the mood you're in, right? So again, some people will come to me and I'll tell them certain movies, and then they'll watch it and then they'll be like, that wasn't scary at all. But then I find out that they like watched it on their iPad on the way to the beach while their little brother was playing like dinky cars on the seat beside him, and his mom and his aunt were like having a spirited conversation, and he was just like, that's not gonna scare you, man. Like, if you watch the movie, it's broad daylight, and then you just jump out and you're at the beach for the day, that's not what I'm talking about, man. You have to be like, set a scene, like if you want these movies to be effective, of course, watch them at night, watch them in the dark. Maybe things like that don't scare you. Again, everybody has their own triggers. One of my favorite things to do to kind of feel like if I'm feeling like a movie is kind of scary or creepy is where me and my girl watch the movies. There's like the door to the basement. So sometimes like I'll just open the door and it's just like a gaping hole down into darkness. And when the movie's creepy enough, like me and my girl will be like, yo, could you close that? Because like, I don't know, it's just a gaping dark hole. The movie's creepy. We're watching in the dark, right? So I don't know. There are certain sets and moods. So if you are having trouble scared, like sometimes kind of try that. And that's going to bring me to one of my last points for the kind of discussion topic for this video. And that is that my parents are dirty cheaters. And the reason why I say that, bear with me, is because when I was a kid, I'm an only child. And so when I would be afraid of the dark as a kid or afraid at night, like I would go bug them. I didn't have siblings to wake up. I didn't have anybody, right? So if I was too scared, I would have to go wake up them. And it resulted in me being banned off watching horror movies when I was a kid, funnily enough. And that's when my dad actually laughs that I have a horror channel now, because like I've always been into the movies, but that's because they've always scared me and I do like that feeling. So, but my parents, man, they would always be like, oh, you're not allowed to watch that if you're too scared. But now that I've realized as an adult that they had each other, right? So for an example, like right now, I'll watch any horror movie anytime. Like I don't care, because when I go to bed, like my girl's in the bed. Like if I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm a little bit nervous, I turn over, she's right there, right? She's sleeping calmly, like nothing's weird, everything's fine. I can wake her up if things get too creepy for me, which I've never had to. You can ask her, but I can do that. But there was one time that she was out of town and I watched a bunch of big movies thinking I was a big man, and then that night I had to like sleep on the couch where I could see the exits. Like I was actually kind of creeped out by myself, right? Like, so it always makes me laugh because my parents would, they chastise you, but they have each other. And it was so funny because one time my dad had went on a trip and my mom was like, she had watched a bunch, not even horror movies, just CSI. Like she watched a bunch of CSI and a bunch of murder shows. And then the next thing you know, it's like 9 at night. She's calling me to come sleep over. And we had a good laugh because I was like, yo, I thought I was a kid. That's why I was scared. Like, see, when you're alone, right? So that's another kind of element sometimes, like who's around, what do you have? Are you by yourself? So I just thought that was kind of funny because I do think that, again, the mood you set and the mood you're in, right? Those kind of do affect whether or not you find things scary or not. So if you are immune to being scared, maybe that's just something to keep in mind. I'm not saying it's going to change it for everybody. I know we're adults now. It's hard to scare us for the most part. But like I said, man, by myself at night, late enough, watching a creepy enough movie, even to this day, like I could still be creeped out. So you know, maybe worry about that mood. Don't watch them in the middle of the day. Maybe set up a TV in the basement and turn off all the lights so that it's like, you know, pitch black to all sides of you so that you don't even know what's beyond that darkness. Like, I would never do that because I hate bugs. And so like, I don't want to sit in the basement, but it might work for others, right? So, but enough of today's talk topic. Let's get right into the 7 movies that I have watched lately that I found the scariest. So the first movie we're going to take a look at on this list is a 2023 horror mystery named Hellhouse LLC Origins: The Carmichael Manor. And this movie is available on Shudder and AMC+. A group of cold case investigators stay at the Carmichael Manor. After 4 nights, the group was never heard from again. What is discovered on their footage is even more disturbing than anything found on the Hellhouse tapes. It is directed by Stefan Cognetti. Okay, so Hellhouse LLC Origins: The Carmichael Manor is actually a pretty damn creepy movie. It really leans into that same found footage style as the original, and it does a great job of just building up like some really good tension. So the scares for this one aren't nonstop, but when they do hit, they hit really hard. And there's just a lot of like kind of unsettling imagery with the kind of mannequins moving around and shadowy figures in the backgrounds and just a lot of stuff that's kind of creepy and going on. But the atmosphere for this one is what really sells it though. It's just a dark, creepy mansion that's eerie, and that element really can keep you on the edge of your seat the whole time. And while the movie is not overly gory, it really makes up with it with just some solid creeps and some really solid jump scares. If you like more of a slow burn horror that kind of gets under your skin, this one is worth a watch.
The Carmichael Manor. Where to begin? Arthur and Patrick Carmichael have been missing for the last 30 years.
We are about 30 minutes from our new home, the Carmichael Manor.
You're staying in the Carmichael?
We're staying inside.
That was how Margot Bentley and Rebecca Vickers wound up in the manor in November of 2021.
Next movie we're going to take a look at is a 2024 horror mystery thriller named Smile 2. And this movie is available on Paramount+. About to embark on a world tour, global pop sensation Sky Riley begins experiencing increasingly terrifying and inexplicable events. Overwhelmed by the escalating horrors and the pressure of fame, Sky is forced to face her past. It is directed by Parker Finn. So for me, right off the bat, Smile 2 is like a really good supernatural horror sequel, and for me, I actually think it's better than the first. Now, when it comes to the scares, this movie really delivers. It has a couple of legit frightening moments, a ton of tension, and plenty of well-timed jump scares. And while the creep factor in the film is a little bit lighter, those creepy smiles, at least for me, they still really work. And the unique horror score in the film really helps build this kind of uneasy vibe. I also thought that Naomi Scott gave a great performance because she does a great job portraying the high emotional scenes mixed in with like the slow unraveling kind of paranoia. If you do like the first Smile, I definitely think this film steps it up. And this is definitely top 10 material from last year. So if you want to be scared, put it on your watch list.
Louis?
No! Get away from me! What?
He was smiling at me.
Next movie we're going to take a look at is a 2024 horror thriller named Beezel. And this movie is available on Apple TV and Google Play.
What's wrong with you?
Over 60 years, 3 guests of a cursed home discover an eternal witch who lives beneath it, with an insatiable thirst for living souls. It is directed by Aaron Fradkin. So Beezel starts off strong as a dark and genuinely creepy witch horror. And when we look at the first 2/3 of the movie, it's just packed with some like really good dark atmosphere, some pretty unsettling moments, and some great scares. The witch's presence in this movie feels really heavy early on, and it just makes some of the characters act in like these disturbing ways that really help ramp up the tension. At times when I was watching the first 2/3 of the film, I really felt like I was watching one of the scariest movies of the year. And the fact that this movie kind of serves as a loose anthology can be both hit or miss, because again, those early segments really hit hard, but I found in the ending stretch it did start to kind of lose its steam. And I was kind of let down that the last family story really does take up the most time, but the characters were just also the most unlikable, so the scares really started to wear thin by then. But honestly, overall, Beezel is definitely worth it for those first 2 acts. And while it may not stick the landing, I really do think that there's enough kind of creeps and scares and tension early on to earn this one a spot on your watch list.
I'm sorry, Apollo. You never stood a chance. Why are you doing this, man? I've made a lot of sacrifices in my life, and I was chosen by her. I can already taste you.
So the next movie on this list may not exactly be a new release, but I did watch it lately, and it is pretty scary, so I think it deserves to be on this list. And that is the 2013 biography horror, The Bell Witch Haunting. And it's available on Amazon Prime. The Robertson County Sheriff's Department released found footage of what was thought to at first be a murder-suicide, but is now believed to be the return of a century-old demon responsible for America's most famous paranormal event. It is directed by Glenn Miller. So for me, The Bell Witch Haunting was a good found footage film because it's chock full of jump scares and genuinely creepy moments. Now, it's not exactly packed with those kind of in-your-face scares, but it has like some unsettling moments, some really good audio design, and the slow, creepy dread in the film really works. Not only that, but there's this constant sense of something lurking just out of frame, ready to kind of jump out and scare you. But one small caveat is this is more of a slow burn scare experience designed to get under your skin. Now, I know that in general, these found footage films just have kind of more of a slower experience, but honestly, if you stick with this one, it really is a good ghost story that messes with your head and has a decent payoff in the end. Personally, if you don't mind kind of slower burn scares, this is one for your watch list.
Are there like hillbillies that live in the woods still? Whoa, whoa. Hey, look at that. What's that?
Hey, what if it is? What if this is the Bell Witch? You are living on his property.
Next movie we're going to take a look at is a 2023 straight horror named Sound of Silence. And this one's available on Prime Video. Emma must uncover the dark secret behind a cursed radio to survive and protect her family. It is directed by Alessandro Antonassi, Daniel Liscar, and Stefano Mandala. So Sound of Silence is just an alright movie, but it does have some pretty good creeps and jump scares. Now, as I kind of mentioned earlier, I feel like to kind of get into this one, you do have to kind of set your mood with like a darker room. And while I did find that the setup and the tactics for the jump scares were just a little bit cliche, they still were quite effective. I also like the idea that since it is about a cursed radio, that they have a really good use of kind of audio cues to ramp up the scares and tension. Unfortunately, however, as the movie kind of goes on, I find that just the reliance on those jump scares gets a little bit too repetitive, and it just kind of lessens the impact of the movie by the end of it. Still, if you are looking for a middle-of-the-road horror movie with a unique premise and some really good jump scares, this one deserves a spot on your watch list. Next movie we're going to take a look at is a 2024 horror film named Do Not Enter. And unfortunately, I could not find this movie streaming anywhere conventional, so you're probably looking for, again, alternative sites or Blu-ray. Two friends Aspiring YouTubers trespass where they shouldn't. Their adventure takes a terrifying turn as they confront an unimaginable horror. It is directed by Hugo Cardozo. So Do Not Enter is a solid found footage film that has a lot of kind of creeps and scares in it, but it definitely leans into and specializes in the scares. There's just a bunch of well-timed jump scares in the movie, and it really does help build the tension throughout. The creepy visuals and subtle background movements, all with this kind of overarching sense of dread, really make this one a tense watch. Now, if I had to nitpick, the acting isn't always the strongest in this movie, but for creeps and scares wise, it really doesn't take away from the experience. And overall, I found that this was a legitimately creepy found footage entry that deserves a spot on your watch list.
¿Qué fue eso?
Así ya fue. El cuadro, ¿eh?
Qué raro cómo se cayó. Bueno, gente, ya es la segunda actividad para...
Tercera.
All right, last movie we're going to take a look at, again, isn't exactly a newer movie, and this one is probably pretty well known, but honestly, I do think any fan of found footage or any fan of kind of these zombie horrors, if you haven't seen this movie, it is a must-see. And that is the 2007 horror mystery thriller REC. And unfortunately, I couldn't find this one streaming anywhere. So again, you are going to have to like put on your detective hat, or you're going to have to check Amazon.
Vamos a salir de aquí por mis cojones.
A television reporter and cameraman follow emergency workers into a dark apartment building and are quickly locked inside with something terrifying. It is directed by Jomi Balaguero and Paco Plaza. So REC is a tense, high-stress found footage zombie film that still holds up and hits hard today. The jump scares are solid, but what really kind of keeps this movie going is that non-stop tension. And it really is the kind of movie that kind of keeps you on the edge the whole way through. Now, the creepy moments are decent and you do feel a little bit of that creep factor, but the scares are what really land in this movie, especially in this enclosed apartment building where you get these really tight, chaotic scenes. The performances feel surprisingly real for a found footage, and it really helps sell the scares amidst all the chaos. Unlike a lot of found footage movies, this one also has a really great kind of crescendo ending and payoff, and it really makes it one of the greats in the genre. And if you have not seen this movie, it deserves a high spot on your watch list for sure.
Hoy, mientras usted duerme, vamos a acompañar a una dotación de bomberos en su recorrido nocturno. Espera, corta.
Vamos, vamos.
Venga, va.
Venga, más agilidad esas piernas.
Well, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of the scariest movies I've watched lately. I hope you enjoyed this content, and if you did find a couple of gems for your watch list, please leave me a like and subscribe. Now, if I had to make a pick this week, honestly, the best movie on this list, just quality-wise, is REC, or Rec, or whatever you want to call it, 2007. I know that feels like an old movie, but because of the found footage nature of it, I really do think visually it holds up, because you are kind of watching that found footageness. I think it's a really creepy, scary movie. I forgot. Like, it still creeped me out to this day, and I've seen it before, so I enjoyed it. I haven't seen it in obviously a very long time, but definitely an old school watch for anybody who hasn't seen that movie. But if you wanted me to kind of pick something on the newer tip, I think the most quality movies on this list are definitely Hellhouse LLC. Those are always scary if you find Hellhouse scary. Some people find Hellhouse just kind of boring and slow because you just get a lot of kind of like, did that move kind of horror, and you're waiting for things. So if you wanted something like with a little bit more of a high octane feel, you could always hit up Smile 2. That's a great traditional kind of, you know, new age age, big budget horror film. It's got tons of gore, like really good gore. It's got good scares to me, like really good jump scares. And the smiles, again, are kind of creepy if you're into that. I know some people think the smiling is dumb, so keep that in mind as a caveat. If you're one of those people, maybe Smile 2 isn't the pick. And I know I've got 3 picks today, but the last pick I would say definitely is Beezel. That's just a really good dark movie, especially that beginning is just super creepy. Again, like I said in my kind of write up there, it does fall a little bit flat at the end, but definitely a good creepy movie that is worth the watch. Well, guys, that's it for me. I am out of here as I have got a ton of movies to watch. Thank you, and if you made it this far into the video, I appreciate you. I really hope you guys have been taking care of yourselves, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.
911, what's your emergency?